The Grand Meridian Hotel had always been the crown jewel of downtown. 37 floors of gleaming glass and steel, with a penthouse ballroom that offered panoramic views of the city skyline. It was exactly the kind of place Mom had always dreamed of for her milestone birthday. Elegant, expensive, and guaranteed to impress her social circle. I stood in the marble lobby at 6:45 p.m., watching the elevators carry guests up to the penthouse for her 55th birthday celebration. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the party preparations in full swing: ice sculptures, champagne fountains, and enough flowers to stock a garden center. My simple black dress felt perfectly appropriate for the evening, though I knew Mom wouldn't see it that way. She'd made her expectations clear during our phone call 3 days ago. "Jessica, sweetie," she'd said in that tone she used when delivering bad news, "I need to talk to you about Saturday." "Mom's party?" I'd asked, though I already knew where this was heading. "Well, yes. The thing is..." She'd paused and I could practically hear her choosing her words carefully. "This is a very upscale event. Important people from your father's firm, the country club board, some of my charity committee friends. The kind of gathering where appearances matter." "I understand. Do you, though?" Her voice had sharpened slightly. "Because honestly, Jessica, I'm concerned about how you'd fit in. That little apartment you live in, that old car you drive, the way you dress. These people will notice." I'd stayed quiet, letting her build her case. "I mean, look at your sister Caroline. She's married to a successful attorney, drives a BMW, belongs to the tennis club. She understands how to present herself appropriately." Caroline, 2 years older than my 27 years, had indeed mastered the art of looking successful on credit and a husband's income. "What are you saying, Mom?" "I'm saying maybe it would be better if you didn't come. Just this once. I know that sounds harsh, but I've worked so hard to put this event together and I need everything to be perfect." The conversation had continued for another 10 minutes, with Mom explaining in increasingly elaborate detail why my presence would somehow diminish her special day. She'd offered to take me out for a nice lunch the following week to make up for it. I'd listened patiently and then said what she wanted to hear. "Okay, Mom. I understand." Now, standing in the lobby of the Grand Meridian, I checked my phone. 6:47 p.m. The party was in full swing, 37 floors above me. I walked to the concierge desk, where a young man in an impeccable suit greeted me with professional warmth. "Good evening, Ms. Chin. How can I assist you tonight?" "I need to speak with hotel security, please. There's been a change regarding the event in the penthouse ballroom." "Of course. I'll have Mr. Rodriguez come down immediately." While I waited, I watched more guests arrive for Mom's party. The women wore designer dresses and enough jewelry to finance a small country. The men sported tailored suits and the confident postures of people accustomed to being important. These were Mom's people now, the social climbers and status seekers who'd embraced her when Dad's law practice had finally started generating serious money. The same people who'd ignored our family completely when we lived in the modest suburban house of my childhood. Security Chief Rodriguez appeared within minutes, a distinguished man in his 50s who'd worked at the Meridian since its opening. "Miss Chin, good to see you. What can I do for you this evening?" "I need you to remove some guests from the penthouse ballroom. They're using the space without proper authorization." His eyebrows rose slightly. "I wasn't aware there was an issue with tonight's reservation." "There wasn't until about an hour ago." I pulled out my phone and showed him the email I'd sent to the hotel management. "I'm withdrawing permission for this event to continue on my property." Rodriguez read the message, then looked at me with new attention. "You're saying you want us to shut down the Anderson party?" "Not shut down. Relocate. They're welcome to continue celebrating elsewhere, but not in my hotel." "Your hotel," he repeated carefully. "I purchased the Grand Meridian last year through my investment company, Apex Holdings. Check with your general manager if you need confirmation." Rodriguez was already pulling out his radio. "Martinez to GM office, priority 1. While he spoke in rapid, quiet Spanish, I watched the elevator numbers climb toward the penthouse. More guests were still arriving, unaware that their elegant evening was about to take an unexpected turn. "Ms. Chen," Rodriguez said, returning his attention to me, "GM confirms ownership transfer to Apex Holdings. What would you like us to do?" "Give them 30 minutes to relocate the party. Any other venue in the city might treat. But I want them out of the penthouse by 7:30. Should I explain the reason for the eviction?" I smiled. Just tell them there was a miscommunication about authorization. If they need details, they can contact my attorney. Rodriguez nodded and headed for the elevators. I walked to the hotel bar and ordered a glass of wine, settling in to wait for the inevitable phone call. It came at 7:23 p.m. Jessica. Mom's voice was high and strained. What is this about? Security is saying we have to leave immediately. That's unfortunate, I said calmly. They're saying there's some kind of authorization problem, but I have the contract right here. We paid a deposit, we have confirmation. Mom, can I ask you something? What? Jessica, this is not the time for. Do you remember what you told me 3 days ago? Silence. You said I was too poor to fit in with your guests. That my presence would somehow diminish your special evening. Jessica, I didn't mean. You meant exactly what you said. And you know what? You were right. Right about what? I am too poor to fit in with your guests. I only have about 12 million in liquid assets, which is practically nothing compared to some of the billionaires in that room. Another silence, longer this time. Jessica, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that you've spent so many years focusing on appearances that you never bothered to learn who your own daughter actually is. I don't understand. Mom, I own the Grand Meridian Hotel. I bought it 11 months ago as part of my commercial real estate portfolio. I could hear her breathing, but no words came. Apex Holdings, I continued, is my investment company. We specialize in acquiring underperforming luxury properties and turning them into profitable assets. The Meridian was my third major purchase. That's impossible. Is it? Or did you just never pay attention when I tried to tell you about my work? Through the bar's windows, I could see a steady stream of confused guests exiting the elevators. Some looked annoyed, others appeared bewildered. A few were already on their phones, presumably trying to make alternative arrangements. Every time I mentioned a successful project or a major contract, I continued, you'd change the subject to when I was going to get a real job or find a husband with prospects. You were so invested in your version of success that you couldn't see mine. Jessica, I need you to stop this. These people will survive having their party relocated. The hotel is providing transportation to 3 alternative venues, all comparable in quality. Your celebration can continue. But the embarrassment will be minimal, assuming you handle it gracefully. Most of your guests probably think this is some kind of amusing mix-up. Mom's voice dropped to a whisper. You're really serious? You actually own this hotel? I own this hotel, the Riverside Convention Center, and the Marina Bay Resort. I'm also the majority investor in the new downtown development project you've been reading about in the newspaper. The Pinnacle Towers? 43 floors of mixed-use space. Residential, commercial, and retail. Groundbreaking is next month. I could hear voices in the background, presumably Dad and Caroline trying to figure out what was happening. Jessica, Mom said, and her voice had changed completely. The imperious tone was gone, replaced by something much smaller. Why didn't you tell us? I tried. Remember last Christmas when I mentioned the hotel acquisition? You told me to stop fantasizing and focus on reality. I thought you were talking about some small property management thing. I was talking about a $47 million purchase. The silence stretched so long I wondered if she'd hung up. Jessica, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. You had the idea you chose to have, I said gently. The same way you chose to believe that my worth as a person was somehow connected to the car I drive or the size of my apartment. What car do you drive? I almost laughed. The same Honda Civic I've had for 3 years. It's reliable, efficient, and gets me where I need to go. Why would I change it? But if you have all this money, having money doesn't mean you have to spend it on things that don't matter to you. I value experiences, security, and the ability to help people I care about. I don't value impressing strangers with expensive toys. Through the windows I could see my family emerging from the hotel entrance. Mom looked shaken, Dad appeared confused, and Caroline was gesticulating wildly while talking on her phone. Your guests are leaving the building, I observed. Security has arranged transportation to the Regency Ballroom. It's actually a nicer space for a party this size. Jessica, please. Can we talk about this? In person? Of course. Would you like to come to my apartment? Your apartment? The penthouse here at the Meridian. I keep a residence on the top floor for convenience. Another pause. You live in the penthouse of your own hotel. It made financial sense. The space was unused and I spend a lot of time managing the property anyway. Jessica, I feel sick. Mom, breathe. This doesn't have to be a disaster. It's just clarity. Clarity. About who we really are versus who we assumed each other to be. I finished my wine and stood up. Look, I'm coming down to help coordinate the move to the Regency. Your party should continue. This is your special day and I want you to enjoy it. You're coming to help? It's your 55th birthday, Mom. That matters more than any of this other stuff. I ended the call and headed for the lobby, where I found my family standing in a huddle near the entrance. Mom looked like she'd aged 5 years in the past 30 minutes. Dad was staring at the hotel's elegant interior with new eyes. Caroline was still on her phone, presumably trying to manage the social catastrophe she was certain had just occurred. Hi, family, I said calmly. Mom turned toward me with an expression I'd never seen before, something between awe and terror. Jessica, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything right now. Let's just focus on getting everyone to the new venue so you can continue celebrating. Dad finally spoke. Jessica, is it true? Do you really own this place? I really do. And the other properties you mentioned? Also true. Caroline finished her call and approached us with obvious wariness. Jess, I just got off the phone with David. He says the Regency Ballroom is actually more exclusive than the Meridian Penthouse. More intimate, better acoustics. That's good, I said. I chose it specifically because I thought you'd prefer the atmosphere. You chose it. I called ahead and made arrangements. The transportation, the setup, the catering transfer, it's all handled. Mom was staring at me like I was a stranger. You did all that? In 30 minutes. It's what I do, Mom. I solve logistical problems for large-scale operations. It's actually a big part of my job. Your job, she repeated weakly. Running a real estate portfolio worth about $200 million requires a lot of coordination. Dad made a sound like air escaping from a tire. But first, I continued, I want to give you your birthday present. I handed Mom an envelope. She opened it with shaking hands and pulled out a set of legal documents. It's the deed to the lakeside cabin in Vermont, I explained. The one you and Dad have been dreaming about for retirement. I bought it last month and had it renovated exactly the way you described. The screened porch, the updated kitchen, the dock for Dad's fishing boat. Mom started crying. Real tears, not the delicate dabbing she did at social events. Jessica, I called you poor. I said you didn't fit in. I banned you from my own birthday party. I know. How can you give me this after what I said? Because you're my mother and I love you. Even when you don't understand my choices, even when you're embarrassed by my lifestyle, you're still the woman who raised me. Dad put his arm around Mom's shoulders. Jessica, we owe you an apology. A big one. You owe me attention, I corrected gently. The kind of attention that would let you see who I actually am instead of who you're afraid I might be. Caroline was reading over Mom's shoulder. Jess, this cabin must have cost. It doesn't matter what it cost. What matters is that Mom and Dad have a place where they can be happy. I looked around at my family, all of them staring at me like they were seeing me for the first time. The cars are waiting, I said. Your guests are probably wondering where you are. As we walked toward the entrance, Mom grabbed my arm. Jessica, will you come to the party? Please. Mom, you told me I was too poor to fit in. I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong. I smiled. I know you were. But I'll still come if you want me there. I want you there more than anything. Then let's go celebrate your birthday properly. As we climbed into the car heading for the Regency Ballroom, I reflected on how the evening had unfolded. Sometimes the most important revelations happen not through grand gestures, but through the simple act of setting boundaries and speaking truth. Mom's party continued at the Regency until nearly midnight. Her guests, initially confused by the venue change, soon decided it added an element of excitement to the evening. Many of them approached me throughout the night, suddenly very interested in discussing real estate investments and business opportunities. But the most meaningful moment came near the end of the evening when Mom pulled me aside. Jessica, she said, I need you to know something. For years I thought success meant looking successful. I was so focused on appearances that I couldn't see the real achievements happening right in front of me. I know, Mom. You've built something incredible and I'm proud of you. Not because of the money or the properties, but because you did it with integrity. You stayed true to yourself even when we couldn't see your worth. Thank you. Can we start over? Can you forgive a foolish mother who got so caught up in keeping up appearances that she almost lost sight of what really matters? I hugged her tightly. There's nothing to forgive. There's just moving forward with better understanding. Later that night, as I stood on the penthouse balcony of my hotel, looking out over the city I'd invested so much in, I realized that the real victory wasn't proving my success to my family. It was finally having the chance to share it with people who could see me clearly, not as the poor relation they'd pitted, but as the daughter they'd raised to be strong, independent, and capable of building something meaningful. The Grand Meridian sparkled below me, its lights reflecting in the windows of the buildings I owned throughout the downtown core. But the most valuable thing I owned wasn't visible from any balcony. It was a family relationship rebuilt on honesty instead of assumptions, worth more than any real estate portfolio could ever be.